There's only one thing I can't deal with, and that's a deck of cards glued together. Today, I'm going to recap a 2017 action crime film called Brawl in Cell Block 99. The movie begins when Bradley tows a car to the garage where he works. It turned out that his boss was waiting for him in front of the workshop and wanted to talk to him about something important. Seeing his boss's unusual body language, he was curious about what to talk about. His assumption is correct because he was fired due to the economic crisis. Not long after, he immediately packed his things and left the workshop. Arriving home, Bradley found his wife, Lauren, on the phone while sitting in a car parked in front of his house. Bradley, suspicious of seeing his wife calling someone, immediately went over and opened the car door. He told her that he had just been fired from his job. While talking to his wife, he noticed red kiss marks on her neck. Feeling jealous, he angrily grabbed his wife's cell phone and checked the last call on it. It turned out that his wife had just called another man. Angrily, he told his wife to come inside the house. After that, he vented his anger by destroying his wife's car, punching the rear-view mirror and forcibly removing the car hood. Bradley invites Lauren to have a one-on-one conversation inside the house and ask how long she's been having an affair. His wife then admitted that she had an affair with another man for 3 months. When Lauren miscarried, she felt sad, and Bradley was getting busy with his work and didn't have time for her. After expressing each other's feelings, Bradley invited his wife to start a new life, and Lauren agreed. After being fired from a repair shop, Bradley intends to work with a man named Gil, who is a drug courier. Hearing this, his wife disagreed with his decision. However, Bradley is adamant that it is not easy for him to get a job quickly with the current challenging economic conditions. 8 months later, Bradley began his job as a drug courier. He delivers a package to a drug dealer in an apartment and drives home. His family's economy began to change. He can now live in luxury and has moved into a bigger and grander house. Lauren is pregnant again. While making out with his wife at home, Bradley suddenly gets a phone call from Gil, who asking him to come over to his house. He then hurried off. Arriving there, Bradley is introduced to a new friend of Gil's named Eleazar. Eleazar is a dashing man with black hair and has a large-scale drug ring in Mexico. Eleazar came with 2 of his men, Roman and Pedro. These 2 men have very strong and large body postures like bodyguards. Eleazar informed that these 2 men would accompany Bradley when he was on duty. However, Eleazar's idea was rejected by Bradley because one of Eleazar's men named Roman looked like he was drunk with drugs. Bradley thought that if Roman went with him, he was worried that it would cause a problem for him. Eleazar defended his men and said that he had trained Roman. Gil then convinced Bradley to take on this very important business task and was promised 3 months off when the baby was born. In the end, Bradley accepted the offer on the condition that he would lead the mission and Eleazar's men had to comply. Both parties agreed. Bradley and Eleazar's men immediately carried out their drug-dealing mission. At night, they arrived at a pier. Bradley and Eleazar's men will begin the task of retrieving a drug package that was placed on the seabed. The 3 of them entered a small yacht and sailed out to sea. Arriving in the middle of the sea, the yacht stopped. Pedro prepares to retrieve the drug package by diving to the bottom of the ocean. Not long after, Pedro had found a huge box like a pirate's treasure chest tied by chains. He opened the chain lock with a crowbar. As fast as he could, he took all the packets of drugs and swam to the surface of the sea. Bradley and Roman help him retrieve the drug package. After that, the yacht drove back to the dock. Bradley suspected that the police would ambush them as they sailed down the yacht. So he orders Roman and Pedro to throw the drug package into the sea. Hearing this, Roman and Pedro reject Bradley's instruction and they get into a fight. Long story short, Bradley finally parted with Roman and Pedro. However, by the time they reached the car park area at the pier, the police had surrounded Roman and Pedro and a shootout ensued. Seeing the incident from afar, Bradley walked quickly to return to the yacht. Unfortunately, on the way, he ran into a policeman who asked for his help to help them. Bradley had to think fast to avoid being suspected, and he pretended to be a civilian by helping the police. Then he shot Roman and Pedro. Pedro died in the shootout, and Bradley was arrested by the police and immediately detained. At the police station, Bradley is interrogated by a detective. The detective learns that Bradley is an intelligent person who can trick others. However, the police are not stupid. Eventually, his trial was held, and the court sentenced him to 7 years in prison for murder and possession of illegal weapons. After being sentenced, he was sent to jail on a prison bus. Upon arrival at the prison, Bradley underwent a physical examination. Then the prison warden asked all prisoners to release all objects in their bodies, followed by a medical exam at the clinic. After that, he was escorted to his cell on the top floor by an old man named Lefty. When Bradley arrived in his cell, he met a prison warden named Andre. Andre explained the rules for inmates during their time in prison. One of the rules is that all prisoners must come out and stand in front of their cells to be recorded when the bell rings. Night fell and the bell rang, so the inmates immediately stood in front of their respective cells and were examined by the prison warden. When all the upstairs inmates were standing in front of the cell, Bradley was still fast asleep, and the inmates had to wait until he woke up. Not long after, Bradley woke up and was reprimanded by the prison warden. He was asked to be more disciplined and obey prison regulations. Meanwhile, at Bradley's residence, Lauren, who was sleeping, suddenly found an intruder who broke into her house and shot her with a stun gun. Lauren then fainted and was taken by the kidnapper to a mysterious place. The next day in prison, Bradley was asked to see the prison staff in his office. The staff is named Denise, who tells him that an obstetrician wants to meet him. It turned out that the doctor was his wife's obstetrician. The doctor wanted to discuss the complications that Lauren experienced with her pregnancy. Bradley met Dr. Pellman the following day in the prison reception room. Dr. Pellman turns out to be Eleazar's henchman, who came to the prison to tell him that his boss lost $3.2 million for his failed drug dealings at that time. Then he showed a photo of Lauren sitting on a chair with her eyes closed and hands tied. Dr. Pellman threatens to abort Lauren's womb. Bradley does not comply with Eleazar's wishes. Finally, they reached an agreement. Bradley is asked to make amends by killing a convict named Christopher Bridge, who was sentenced to life. The prisoner is in a different prison, namely in cell block 99. After finishing speaking with his guest, Bradley was escorted by the prison warden back to his cell. Before entering his cell, he suddenly took off his shoes and started hitting Andre with the shoes. A fight ensued. Bradley deliberately provoked a commotion so that he could be transferred to cell block 99 in Redleaf, where the prison area is a separate prison with a maximum security. Bradley can beat Andre easily. However, some of Andre's colleagues came and managed to catch him. Bradley again attacked several prison guards on the way to the cell, and a fight ensued. Bradley did this because he felt the trouble he made were not enough to be transferred to the Redleaf area. At the end of the fight, he was electrocuted by one of the prison guards, and he was transferred to Redleaf Prison. His wish was granted. When Bradley arrived at Redleaf Prison, he was greeted by the warden. The warden warned that the Redleaf Prison is a maximum security prison, where the possibility of being released is very small. After a physical examination, Bradley was then escorted to cell number 59. Arriving at the cell, he was surprised to see that the condition of the cell room was different from the previous prison. The cell now looks dirty, dark, and smelly. The cell room, which is attached to the open toilet, is filled with excrement from the previous convicts. He couldn't stand the stench and took off his shirt to cover his nose. After lying in his cell for a long time, Bradley was approached by officers who took him outside to breathe fresh air for 60 minutes. When he reached the prison grounds, he was approached by a young inmate named Derek. Bradley then asked Derek if he knew a prisoner named Christopher Bridge. However, Derek said that he did not know the prisoner by that name. A moment later, Bradley approached several inmates who were exercising. Even though Derek had forbidden him to approach the inmates, he still disturbed them. Fights are unavoidable. One by one, the prisoners fell. Not long after, the prison guards fired warning shots. Again, Bradley attacked the officers. Finally, he can be paralyzed and immediately taken to the cell block 99 area with his eyes closed. Arriving at cell block 99, Bradley's blindfold was removed, and he saw that cell block 99 was very isolated and located underground. Before entering the cell, he was put on an electrocution jacket. When he entered the cell, he saw a lot of broken glass scattered on the cell floor. Meanwhile, Lauren looks very weak from being held captive in a hidden place. Dr. Pellman is also in place, where Lauren is held captive with a man from Korea who is an abortion doctor. However, they have not performed an abortion on Lauren yet, but only done a preliminary examination. The scene switched back to prison. Bradley, who was lying limp in his cell, started screaming Christopher Bridges' name. Then the inmate next door replied that there was no inmate named Christopher Bridge. It wasn't long before the prison guards came to electrocute him until he limped. Then the warden told Bradley that several inmates wanted to see him. Bradley was led to a basement to meet the inmates. It turned out that when he met the prisoners, one of them was Eleazar. Bradley then learns that Dr. Pellman's request to kill Christopher Bridges was a ruse so that Bradley can be transferred to cell block 99 and Eleazar can torture him. Eleazar said angrily that he had lost $3.2 million. In addition, because of Bradley's actions, he was put in prison, and his sister had to become a widow because he killed her husband Pedro during a shootout at the dock. Bradley was tortured continuously until he was weak. He was then shown a photo of his wife Lauren, who was also lying limp and helpless. After the torture, Bradley was dragged into his cell. Bradley returned to the holding cell, where Eleazar was, and attacked his men. One by one, Eleazar's men fell, and only Eleazar remained in the cell. Bradley then strangled Eleazar and asked him to message Dr. Pellman to cancel his wife's abortion. He also asked them to take Lauren to Gil's house. Bradley's request was granted after he broke Eleazar's leg. Arriving at Gil's residence, Lauren immediately ran towards him. After that, Jill shoots Dr. Pellman and the abortion doctor from a distance with a long gun, killing them. While in prison, after receiving news that his wife survived via cell phone, Bradley then gave a final message and asked his wife to put the cell phone to her stomach so that the baby she was carrying could hear the message he was about to convey. He hoped that his baby would grow up healthy and smart. Bradley looks very sad because he knows he will never see his child. After hanging up the phone, he went back to Eleazar's cell room and attacked him until his head fell off. The prison's warden came and fired a bullet into Bradley's head, killing him. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.